States was carried on the Douglas DC-3. In the following year, 1939, 90% of the passenger traffic in the entire world was carried on the Douglas DC-3, those original 800 airplanes. Time-wise, we're getting up into the late 1930s, and that's when World War II was beginning to get underway. Most of these airplanes were converted over into wartime use, the original 800, but the United States government gave a contract to Douglas to build 10,000 more of these airplanes according to the original spec. No changes, just build 10,000 for wartime use. And then Russia entered into an agreement with Douglas where Russia built 2,000 of these airplanes using the Douglas specifications. So there were 12,800 of these airplanes that were built, and many of these airplanes are still flying. I've seen them fly over here. You've probably seen them fly over your hometowns. There's just a lot of them that are still flying. So it's been a great airplane, and it's still flying. Any questions? Not at that time. There were some other companies building, but they just kind of dwarfed the market pretty quickly. Later on, other companies caught up, but this one was a right-size airplane for the demand at the time, and it was a very efficient airplane. By the way, this airplane has the distinction of being the first airplane that could make a profit by carrying passengers alone. Prior to this airplane, the other airplanes had to carry airmail just to get that money and make profit. This one carried airmail, but it didn't have to. It was efficient enough that it could make money by just carrying passengers. So it was a good airplane. But 24. This configuration, that varies a lot. 24 was standard. Questions? Okay, let's go. I hope you all would like to see some World War II fighter aircraft. So, I'll show you some of those. Okay, we're in the World War II gallery, and in this gallery we have some of the most outstanding airplanes of the various countries that participated in that war. Here on my right is the British Spitfire. It was an outstanding airplane, very fast, very maneuverable, very good airplane. It gained its principal notoriety by being one of the principal fighters that fought in the Battle of Britain. Germany had a battle plan where it was their intent to gain air superiority over UK in the early part of the war, and after they gained air superiority, they then were going to invade Great Britain. So they sent airplanes from Germany over to Great Britain in the quantities of about 5 to 1 of the British. But this is one of the major airplanes the British had. And their pilots were so brave and so skilled. What they were doing was they were flying, they'd go up, engage the German aircraft in combat. They'd run out of fuel, they'd come back down, refuel, rearm, and go back up. And sometimes these pilots did that as many as 7 times a day. But as a result of that kind of flying, the skilled flying and that kind of dedication, they were able to fend off the Germans, and Germany never did gain air superiority over Britain. So, and therefore they never were able to invade the country. So this airplane, and there were a few more like it, but they were given credit for being able to intercept the Germans and protect their country. In fact, it led Winston Churchill to make his famous remark. You probably heard it. It says, "Never in the history of humankind have so many owed so much to so few." But meaning that the country of Britain, all the people, owed their existence to the few pilots that fought in that early Battle of Britain. And a large number of them were flying this very airplane. The next airplane I want to discuss with you is in a mural. This is the Boeing B-17. That was the principal bomber that we had at the beginning of World War II. Even though its designation was B-17, it was called a Flying Fortress. The reason it was called Flying Fortress was it had so many guns on it. It's got a turret down here on the nose, in front of the nose there, another turret up on top, another one on the bottom called the belly gunner. There's turrets on both sides of the airplanes about midway there. And then on the tail, the very tail of the airplane, there's the tail gunner. So when the designers designed this airplane, they thought, with that many guns, there's no way that enemy aircraft is going to be able to penetrate and get in and knock these bombers out. It turns out they were very wrong. The fighters were able to get in. In fact, these airplanes were getting knocked down at the rate of about 30% per mission. You just can't sustain yourself very long when you get those kind of loss rates. So what they started doing was escorting these bombers with fighter aircraft. They had airplanes like the P-47, which was a very good fighter. And when those fighter aircraft were escorting the bombers, they did not get knocked down. There was one problem though, and the P-47 didn't have enough fuel to go all the way from Great Britain to Germany and back. They had enough fuel to go about halfway. If they run out of fuel, they have to go back and refuel. Well, the obvious thing for the Germans to do is to wait until the fighters leave and then attack. And then the loss rate went back up again. But then along came this other airplane we have over here, and this is known as the North American P-51 Mustang. It came out about midway during the war. It's a very fast airplane, very maneuverable, very efficient. But it had one feature that made it particularly attractive, and that was with the fuel it carried on board, it could also add fuel tanks out here on the wing. Those teardrop-shaped fuel tanks could be added to the wings. And with that amount of fuel, these airplanes could escort the B-17s all the way to Germany and engage in combat and come back home. That just changed the course of the war, because that allowed the bombers to get through and to complete their missions. And things just totally changed then. And it was this airplane was largely given the credit for that the ability to escort the bombers all the way over and back. So it was a great airplane, no question about it. Let me step through you here and have you turn around and look backwards. This airplane up here, I know you've seen pictures of it, movies of it. This is the Japanese Zero. This airplane was one of the principal fighters of Japan, and it was involved in the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and it was a very good airplane. It was very fast, and it was very maneuverable. But one of the reasons it was so fast and maneuverable was it did not have any armor plating in it. Armor plating is the sheets of steel that these other airplanes have, like the Spitfire. It's a sheet of steel on both sides of the pilot and underneath him and behind him. So if the airplane got hit, the sheets of steel would deflect the bullets, and chances are pretty good that the pilot would not get killed. He may have to bail out, but he wouldn't get killed. The Japanese elected not to put any of the armor plating in this airplane, and by doing that they saved several hundreds of pounds of weight, making the airplane very light, therefore very fast and very maneuverable. But they put their pilots at risk. If you hit one of these airplanes, it was almost certain to knock it down because there's no armor protection in it at all. But it was a good flyer. In fact, our pilots were told not to engage it in combat, turning combat, because they were going to lose. This airplane could really turn fast. But so we were told, don't get in that kind of combat with them. But it was a good airplane. But there were some sacrifices that were made to make it that way. Now, another airplane I want to talk with you about a little bit is over here. This airplane, well, let me wait till you get over here. This is one of the principal German fighter aircraft. It's the Messerschmitt, the ME-109, and it was an outstanding airplane. It was very fast, very maneuverable. One of the features that it had was it had its gun located right up here in the center of the spinner. That opening there is the gun barrel. And so the gun barrel goes right back through the fuselage there. So when the pilot's looking out the front of his aircraft, he's looking right at his gun barrel. So it's very easy for him to get aligned with the enemy aircraft and knock them down. This was a very effective airplane. In fact, these airplanes were flying at the beginning of the war, and they were still flying at the end of the war. Most of the other airplanes in the war, they were either flying at the beginning or the end, but if they were flying at the beginning, they just became overcome with advances in developments. The airplanes at the end of the war were much more advanced, but this one had such good features about it that they were flying at the beginning of the war, still flying it at the end of the war, and it got the distinction of being the airplane which had more copies manufactured than any other airplane. This airplane, they produced 33,000 of these airplanes.